Now, I don't know about you, but I've probably spent way too many hours of my creative career stressing over this idea of a niche. Do I need to choose a niche? Which kind of niche is the right niche? If I create content outside of my niche, will all of my social media platforms decide they hate me and punish me forever? Well, if you can relate to any of this, keep watching, because in today's video, I'm going to address any questions you may have about niching so you can spend less time stressing and more time creating. If you're new here, I'm a fashion and beauty micro-influencer based in New York City, and I use this channel to help you create great content, grow your digital brand, and earn sustainable income from content creation. So if any of that interests you, please consider subscribing. I've been creating content for a little over a decade, but it wasn't until a few years ago that I started hearing people talk about the idea of a niche as it relates to influencers and creators. I have personally tried both niching down as well as broad content creation before, so I definitely feel like I can speak to both sides. So today I'm going to walk you through some niche basics, also when and how I think it's smart for creators to utilize a niche, and also this kind of theory that's been going around on TikTok lately, this idea that you are your niche, and my thoughts on that. So let's get into it. First, just to get on the same page here, let's define a niche. So I define a niche as any specialized area that you focus on when you're creating content. It's a really specific area or specialization that you essentially can become known for or become an expert in. So that is what a niche is, but why might you want to even niche down in the first place? Well, the truth is that niching down can help you grow faster, but it's not necessarily the be-all end-all route to rapid growth. We'll talk about this more a little later on in the video. One benefit to niching is sometimes being a niche content creator can help you connect with brands that you might be interested in working with, because a particular brand may be looking for a very niche type of content creator to work with. For example, if there is a brand that is a clean beauty brand and they create products that include really natural ingredients and they're looking for people whose audience looks for that when they go shopping, they might be more likely to cast a content creator who primarily highlights clean beauty brands versus just any beauty influencer who posts about makeup, skincare, hair, nails, all of these different things. Or maybe you create a lot of home DIY content, and places like the Home Depot or Michael's craft stores might be more likely to sponsor your work because that's the type of content you create, and your audience is also inclined to recreate some of your DIY projects and maybe looking for places to go to get those materials. Another benefit to niching is you can really start to appear as an authority in that particular area. So you can start to build more trust with your audience if you are consistently talking about something that you really specialize in, something you're super familiar with, or something you've had a lot of experience in. And another big benefit to niching down from a workflow perspective is if you find that one particular type of content really takes off and resonates with your audience, you can take that content format and recreate it or use it as the framework for content that you create in the future. So for example, if you're a fashion content creator and every time you style a casual outfit, it gets a lot of views on a platform like TikTok, Instagram Reels, or YouTube Shorts, you can always go back to that format and recreate it as many times as you want for every single outfit that you wear when you're going somewhere. So those are some of the key benefits to why you might want to niche down as a content creator or influencer. Next, I want to talk a little bit more about when to kind of activate your niche, or when might be the most advantageous time to start to really specialize or replicate the same type of content over and over again. This is something I've spoken about in other videos before, but I'm bringing it up again because I think it's really relevant to the topic of niching, and that is the hourglass theory. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you're probably familiar with this theory that I've talked about before, which is that when you first start out posting content on a new platform, whether it's TikTok, Instagram, Pinterest, YouTube, or wherever, you want to post kind of a lot of different things at first to get a sense of what's really working and what people are watching. It can be really hard to go into a platform just posting one particular type of content before you know what people on that platform want to see from you, because I don't know about you, but I find my audience to be different between TikTok, between Instagram, and also here on YouTube. So until you get to know this audience and see what they really like and what they're resonating with, it can be a little hard to just pick one particular topic and go in on it 100%. So it's for this reason that I recommend with the hourglass theory, this is kind of the term that I've come up with to describe it, that whenever you start posting content on a new platform, first you start out pretty broad. You are posting probably a bunch of different things, whether that is a bunch of different types of videos or maybe content in a few different categories, to just start to get a sense of what does the audience on this platform enjoy the most. So even if you are a food content creator, maybe you are posting some recipe videos, some kitchen hacks, some kitchen organization and storage tips, some cleaning products as they relate to your food prep and recipes, and you can kind of still stay within your food umbrella, but at least give people a little bit of a taste of a few different types of content that hopefully vary in length, maybe some short and some longer, and also potentially filming style, because giving people kind of different angles, whether that is hands and pan content if you're cooking, or actually showing your face and showing a bit more of your atmosphere from like a lifestyle component, that could be a really interesting way to test different types of content, even as a food creator. So at the bottom of the hourglass, you're still pretty broad. You're testing a bunch of different things, and hopefully at some point you'll notice a few different pieces of content, or maybe one or two at least, start to take off and get more engagement, more views, and more comments than your other content. Now, when that happens, I believe that you can really take advantage of that by replicating that content over and over again in order to accelerate your growth. The idea here is that if you have a video that takes off and you go and look at your analytics, check the data and say, hey, this is what's really working and what's really resonating with people, it gives you reason to believe that if you recreate that content or use a similar format, that the same thing will happen again. That way, you're not just guessing what people want, you're actually looking at the data to see what they were interested in and what they're engaging with. Now, I'm gonna come right back to the implications of what happens when you actually niche down like that, but the idea is you started out broad, you found something that worked, and you really zoned in on it to accelerate your growth, so that in the future, as your audience grows, people naturally will start to want to know even more about you beyond just that content that you kind of became known for or were most recognized for creating. For example, obviously on my YouTube channel here, I talk all about different tips and strategies for creators and influencers, but every once in a while I get a comment like, hey, where's your top from? This one is Rebecca Minkoff, and I will link it down below. Or what'd you think of whatever book is behind me on the bookshelf? So even though my content is all about creator tips and helpful strategies and things like that, you might naturally start to ask me things about my environment if you get used to seeing me here, and the same is true for other types of creators and other types of content. If you look at top TikTok creators like Addison Rae and Charli D'Amelio, you'll notice a similar trend where they became super well known for their dancing videos at the height of the pandemic, and now they are doing all kinds of different things. Addison was in a Netflix movie, Charli and her family have a Hulu show, Addison has a beauty brand. Like, there is so much that you can do once you do have the audience, and if you want to accelerate your path to getting there, recreating any viral or trending content is going to be key to doing that. Now, let's go back to the middle of the hourglass for just a minute, because obviously if you have a video go viral that is maybe something controversial or maybe something that you weren't anticipating going viral, you need to use your discretion to determine, am I okay with recreating this similar type of content over and over again in order to grow my audience? Because remember, people on social media are very quick to jump to conclusions. They'll be very quick to, give you a name and refer to you as, I don't know, the candle girl or the hot takes wedding planner, or maybe just like the prankster or something like that. So is becoming associated with that thing, even if it was a one-off viral video that you don't recreate in the future, you want to ask yourself if you're okay with becoming known for whatever the type of content is that you're posting online, because it could be the kind of pathway to growing a bigger audience in the future. But if you don't love it and really feel like you could see yourself creating that type of content over and over again, I would recommend trying to not create that type of content in the first place. So when I say go broad at the bottom of the hourglass, think about your content pillars and the things that you already are posting and creating about maybe on other platforms. If you don't yet have your your content pillars established, be sure to grab my free guide, The Influencer Launchpad, because inside I have a whole section devoted to explaining content pillars and giving a few examples inside to really help you select your content pillars. There are also some fun quizzes inside about finding your why as an influencer or which platform is best for you, along with some other tips and strategies related to content creation, content planning, and more. So you can grab that free guide from the link down below in the description box. As I'm sure you can imagine, my TikTok For You page is filled with a lot of people like me who are content creators and are also sharing the tips and behind the scenes of content creation. So lately on my For You page, I want to say starting probably at the top of this year, I've started to get served some videos about this idea that you are your niche. So essentially the concept is we're throwing a funeral for the niche in 2023, forget feeling super boxed into things, like maybe just at the end of the day, you are your niche. And I wanted to talk about these videos and this kind of trend that I've been seeing on TikTok because I do think that it's really interesting on both sides. For example, I love the idea that this kind of takes the pressure off of content creators and gives them the ability to just exist a little bit more and not feel like they are just content machines and have to only pump out certain types of content and that they can't get a little personal or share bits and pieces of their life as they want to in addition to the content their audience loves. So I do think this removes some of the pressure from influencers to, again, feel like they can just be themselves and, you know, enjoy the community that they've built because they know that people are sticking around for them and not just for their content. So I really do like that idea of it. However, it is a little contradictory to the idea of what a niche is in the first place, because a niche does imply a bit of restraint, like there is supposed to be some kind of parameter around a niche. And if you are your niche, it feels like it kind of is counterintuitive to the idea of what we've already went ahead and defined a niche as in this video today. So that being said, if you are into this idea of you being your niche, what I would recommend doing is, again, kind of going back to like a content pillars type exercise and thinking about a few different topics that you do like to talk about, but that maybe are connected in some way or that relate to one another, so that it's not like you're jumping around from, I don't know, like juggling to like caring for succulents, if that makes sense. For example, some of my content pillars that I've come up with that I typically share on platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Pinterest, where I feel like I have a little bit more flexibility to share different types of content on those platforms, are fashion, beauty, content creation tips, and life in New York City. And I feel like those are all obviously pretty different, but at the same time, they're still connected. They're still kind of cyclical, and I can mix and match and combine some of those when I want to. So for example, maybe I am doing a get ready with me video and I am showcasing different beauty products that I'm using, but maybe I'm also telling a story about a great restaurant I tried last week in New York. So I think in order to execute the you are your niche concept successfully, you want to, again, come up with some of those kind of key categories that definitely stem from you, but that you feel like can relate to one another in certain ways. And I think this kind of creates a happy medium, because if I think about you are your niche, I mean, you still are only seeing a small sliver of my life that I share on social media. And I do think that one pretty good example of that is my relationship, where I tend to keep my relationship pretty private. It's like exists entirely offline, I would say, except for an occasional Instagram photo here and there. But I do feel like now that we are planning our wedding, Andrew and I are getting married this fall, which I'm so excited about. Now that we're doing that, it's given me kind of the opportunity to share a little bit about that process without having to like share every intimate detail of our relationship. So I've been really enjoying sharing wedding updates over on TikTok. I'm not sure why I picked TikTok to do this, but it just feels like the right place to be to talk about wedding things. So I have been sharing wedding updates over on TikTok, and that kind of makes me feel like I'm giving people a window into things without, again, necessarily having to like have Andrew be in a lot of content with me when I know that's just like not something that he's interested in doing. So again, that's one way way to kind of think about sharing a part of your life without having to go off topic from stuff that you already create content about. Because I feel like when it comes to wedding stuff too, I'm talking about what I'm going to wear. I was talking about trying to make a decision about my dress, and I am now currently in contact with our beauty team who we're going to be using. So kind of figuring out those little details as well. And like that is a great way to reference my wedding, reference my relationship, but tie it back to fashion and beauty, which is what I know I am most excited to create content about and what my audience really enjoys as well. And I also want to talk about how a niche might translate depending on which platform you are creating content for, because I actually do think that there are some platforms where it makes sense to niche down and some platforms where you might want to be a little bit more flexible and give yourself time to test a lot of different types of content. So for example, when it comes to long form content on searchable platforms, I do think having a niche can really help you out. So particularly here, I'm talking about blogs that you have, or even content on a searchable platform like YouTube, where you're creating long form video content. So if you know anything about how Google ranks content on the search engine results page, when you type something in and then you get the results on Google, they are typically looking for a few different factors, but one of the acronyms in Google's guidelines that they advise people to take into consideration when creating and publishing content is an acronym called EAT, which stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So expertise, authority, that kind of really ties in well to the idea of a niche from where we defined it at the beginning of this video. So given that this is still something that Google takes into account when ranking and recognizing content, I think it's still something important that you should consider when you're publishing on these long form searchable platforms. And of course, YouTube is also owned by Google, so we can assume that a lot of these same principles translate over as well. I will also add that niching down on YouTube really has helped explode my channel's growth in the last few years, and I won't get into it now, but I do have a whole video about how I went from my first 100 subscribers to getting 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, so I will leave a link to that video if you'd like to go watch it after you finish this one. But as helpful as I think it is to stick to a niche when creating long-form searchable content, I think that you have a lot more flexibility to branch out outside of your typical area of content creation on platforms like TikTok, Instagram, especially with Instagram Reels and Instagram Stories, and even Pinterest, where Pinterest has boards. So within Pinterest, you can create different boards for all of the different categories of content that you're interested in, and you won't really be penalized one way or the other for, not getting followers and things like that on Pinterest, because on Pinterest, it's a little bit less about the followers and more about the overall monthly views. I started Pinterest back in 2009 when I was just repinning content for fun, and the board on my Pinterest that has the most followers is actually interior decor, which again is not really one of my content pillars, but it is something that still brings people into my page on Pinterest, and then if they're interested in outfit ideas or beauty product recommendations, they can also hang around and follow boards where I post that content. But I would definitely say the ultimate place to go outside of your niche and truly be personable and just be yourself and share your day-to-day experience is of course on Instagram stories. If you follow me on Instagram, which if you don't, you should, you will definitely see a lot of my day-to-day life and behind the scenes, from things like grabbing a coffee from a local cafe to even just taking a walk around my neighborhood or telling stories and anecdotes about my day too. For example, yesterday I was supposed to get a food delivery delivered here, and I got the receipt that was like, your food's been delivered, and they showed me a picture, and it was a mailroom that I've never seen in my entire life before. So I actually went to a local Facebook group, posted the photo, and said, does anyone recognize this lobby? And within like 2 minutes, someone was like, oh yeah, it's this building. Like they put the name, and I was actually able to go and retrieve my missing package because that other building was just a few doors down from me. That they got the address confused, obviously, but I loved sharing that story because I was like, look how a Facebook group helped me get my food back. And that's not something that I would sit here and make like a 20-minute video about on my YouTube channel, but it was a really quick and fun anecdote to be able to share on Instagram, and to get replies from people being like, Facebook groups, the last redeeming thing about the platform, or like, so glad you got your food back, just to spark those conversations by sharing a day-to-day human experience. I think that's really the magic of Instagram stories. So definitely utilize those to your advantage to show people a behind the scenes look at your life, to help them get to know you a little bit more, and also to talk to camera whenever you can, especially if you find that you don't do that in the majority of your other content that you create. Don't forget to download my free guide, The Influencer Launchpad, for all of my tips and strategies about creating content pillars. Be sure to leave a comment down below to let me know what you thought about this video, if you have a niche, or what your view on niching down is in 2023. And of course, be sure to go check out that video that I mentioned about going from 100 to 10,000 subscribers on YouTube and how niching down helped me do that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.